And here we are, Grand Prix Dallas. Marshall Sutcliffe here with Jacob Van Lunen. We are in the quarterfinals. William Huey Jensen on blue-white control versus Darin Minard on Boros Burn. All right, so let's see if Huey can keep that life total high enough. He's going to start things off with a hollowed fountain tapped, pass the turn back, and Darin's going to play, well, one of only 8 creatures he's got in the main here that we saw out of his list. Young Pyromancer. This thing can get out of hand very quickly and demand a Supreme Verdict all on its own, potentially.
It's true.
All right, there's 2 damage to Darin. And attack you. So here's an Azorius Charm to put it back on top of Darin's library, but he can respond here with some burn spells and try to get a few elemental tokens going as well. And that's a shock.
That is a shock.
You take 2. I get a trigger. Make a token.
My favorite shock art, Onslaught. A Psychotog getting shocked.
Is it?
Yep. Doesn't really work.
Doesn't work as well as
in reality, but
you like
shows
it.
that the Psychotog is feeling the pain a little bit.
All right, here's Magma Jet. A couple of triggers go on the stack. One of them is a Scry 2. The other one is making an elemental token.
And they're just finding him another token. He very clearly recognized the trigger. He pointed at the Pyromancer.
He did. And now Pyromancer goes up back on top. So Darin's got a pretty stacked library here. All right, so Huey untaps for the turn. Has a full grip here.
Is Sphinx's Revelation pretty good against Darin's deck?
You mentioned Skullcrack as one of the key cards here, though. At some point, Darin can just start sitting on Skullcracks, right? And just leave up that 2 mana indefinitely and wait. And there it is again. Young Pyromancer threatening to build out a pretty nasty board state here. Huey's going to draw a card, though. He wants to hit these land drops, keep them flowing. He's also got Supreme Verdict in his hand. He's going to need to wrath away the board state here because it's already putting up pressure, and this is all just from the Young Pyromancer. So here comes Wrath. Supreme Verdict sends everybody away, but you got to feel like Darin's pretty happy. He's got his opponent tapped out, and he had to do it basically just to take 1 card out of his hand that already did some work. And here it is.
Chandra's Phoenix.
Chandra's Phoenix battling in there for 2 and keeping that pressure on, never letting up and keeping Huey on his heels. Now, Huey's got a Detention Sphere in hand, though. That's a really nice answer.
Yeah, it's a really good top deck there for Huey.
He had it in his hand. Yeah.
Oh, he did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But yeah, really nice answer there. As it's not going to end up in the graveyard, so he's not going to be able to get that back, and he just has to pass a turn here. So, not doing anything. Another land drop, and Huey's got a Sphinx's Revelation for 3 that he can fire off any time here. And here's a War Leader's Helix. Is he going to do it in response to play around Skullcrack? He also has Dissolve that he might want to either use here or keep up. Nope, he's going to say, look, I'll take 1. I'll bargain with you. I'll take 1, but I get to draw 3. What do you say? And Darin says, yeah, sure, man.
That's fine.
But now Darin gets to have his way with this turn. He can do whatever he wants here, and he does nothing. Passes the turn. More lands for Huey. He's got plenty of land drops coming.
And, I mean, the big issue this game that Darin had is that I think he put a lot of eggs into the Young Pyromancer basket, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And
by throwing those burn spells? I mean, where else are they going to go?
Well, I mean, they're not going to go anywhere else. But I'm saying that I think he could have maybe played a Phoenix on turn 3 instead of playing the burn spells. And it's not necessarily that he made a mistake. It's just that his deck is set up this way pre-board, and the Young Pyromancer draws are very weak against the control decks.
Okay. Divination and a couple of lands for Huey. He's going to take the Divination. He's got at least 2 more lands in his hand already, so he's not worried about hitting land drops. This is all off of a Jace Architect of Thought activation. Now Huey has to decide if he wants to keep. Yeah, he still has his dissolve in hand. He's got a quicken as well. But he lets Jace die. I think he figures that Jace is kind of countering a burn spell there by eating one anyway, right?
Yeah, and I mean, he already got the divination off it. It's already given him a good amount of value.
Okay. Here's a quicken, ostensibly just to draw a card here. Yep, just going to draw a card.
And he finds a revelation, which is going to be great for him here.
Yeah, once the second revelation gets fired off, things start getting out of hand pretty quickly. Huey's at 11, but he's at a relatively stable state. There's no board on his opponent's side outside of some land, so he can figure out how much damage he could take maximum here pretty easily. And there's a detention sphere and 2 more lands. Huey snap takes a detention sphere. Having that detention sphere in hand means that another Phoenix is just basically a shock. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so here's a War Leader's Helix to the face on end step from Darin. And Huey takes it. This puts Huey down to 7. It's starting to get a little sketchy here. He's left up that dissolve. He's had a few opportunities to play it, but has decided not to. Is he going to have to fire it off here? I mean, obviously, Phoenix is not the card you want to be dissolving because it just puts it in the yard where he can get it back anyway.
And I mean, now Darin's in a pretty bad spot here because Darin only has 1 mana open. So Huey knows he does not have access to Skullcrack this turn. So I think we can expect William Jensen to be casting a main phase Sphinx Revelation for 6 on this turn. She's going to play an island and make a nice big revelation. Put yourself back at 13. Because it's not only are you drawing 6 cards, which is pretty absurd, but you're also gaining 6, which is essentially like making your opponent lose 2 cards and pay the mana for them. So effectively an 8 for 1 here.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's good. In the business, that's what we call that. That's a lot of cards. All right.
He gets to keep the perfect grip, and Huey looks like he's going to be in prime position here to take this first game as Darin has just kind of ran out of gas.
Yeah, Darin has his opponent down to 11 here, but it's going to be pretty rough beating somebody who has a fistful of counter magic at this point.
Now, Huey does have to get to the business of ending this game at some point.
It's true.
How does that actually go? Is he gonna try to deck Darin eventually? I mean, is that a reasonable game plan for him, or does he have a? Is there a?
He's just gonna cast this Elspeth eventually, right?
And that's how he's gonna win the game.
Yes.
He can cast and protect Elspeth with a few counter spells or something.
I think that's definitely the most reasonable way for him to win this game at this point.
Okay. Detention Sphere first.
He can even lifelink his guys with Azorius Charm. And if he makes a bunch of tokens with Elspeth, that's going to put him pretty far out of range. Darin probably going to shock his own Phoenix here.
I mean, this is a nice, tricky play. Keeps the Phoenix in the yard where he can get it back.
I like that a lot.
But it still sucks, right? Like, you're not happy.
Definitely not happy.
He just used his own spell on his own creature. It's like, yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
It's better than this other option. I mean,
it was better than his other option, but man, that's brutal. I mean, he's now top decking.
Yeah, and I mean, William Jensen at this point, I think, has 4 counterspells in hand.
Okay.
With his opponent having 1 card in hand.
Skullcrack you. He's just going to fire it off while his opponent's tapped out.
Well, it also lets him return the Phoenix.
Right, and get in there. So here it is. Return Phoenix, cast it, and put Huey down to 6, though. Now, that was a big turn for him.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, at this point, you have to be fair. I mean, his opponent did cast a Revelation for 6.
mm-hmm. And that was the second Revelation of the game. Yeah, in an ideal world, from Darin's perspective, this game was over a long time ago, and that expiration has passed. So now it gets interesting because Huey doesn't really have a great way to apply pressure, right? I mean, Elspeth will get the job done eventually, but it does take a little while. And Darin's hit 26, so he doesn't have all day. And, you know, Darin gets to just keep drawing burn spells. Here's Elspeth. And Huey's basically tapped out again, but he also knows that Darin's only going to get one card. The worst case scenario is 4.
Exactly. So,
lightning strike, and he's just going to go ahead and target Huey. But the problem is this next turn is the big one now, because now Huey has enough counter magic to just sit. And he can just not do anything for like 3 turns and really start working on Darin's life total. And yeah, you see Huey's activating his Mutavault before getting in, so this is actually going to be 5 damage. And it'll be 8 next turn.
Surprised yet didn't lifelink with his Azorius Charm there. But, I mean, he has enough counter magic and his opponent has no cards in hand, so I guess he's not particularly worried about it.
All right, pass the turn back after making more tokens and playing a divination. And Darin's like, yeah, go.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think Darin's playing it out because, you know, there could be some world where Huey doesn't have counter magic in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah,
you know, if he draws a burn spell, then he's going to win.
And now here's the big one, though.
Yeah.
He played Azorius Charm using the not often used but pretty potent mode of gaining life. And that would have gained him 8 life and put the game completely out of reach. And, in fact, it did, so Darin scooped.
Yeah, Darin, post-board, his deck's going to get a little bit better.
So what does it look like post-board here?
Well, he gets Toil and Trouble and Assemble the Legion.
Wow. Those are both fantastic against
Those
Huey.
are both very fantastic here.
Now, these deck lists are public, meaning that what Huey's looking at right there is his opponent's list. So he is going to be aware, you know, a card like Assemble the Legion is a card that can kind of catch you off guard, right? You use a couple detention spheres on Chandra's Phoenixes, and then they're like Assemble, and you're like, whoops. So that's not going to happen here, you know, because Huey's perfectly aware of what his opponent's up to.
Although
I like the 4-card sideboard there, too. It's just...
I mean, he's playing a burn deck. That's what burn deck sideboards look like.
3 4-ofs. Real simple.
Yeah. But something interesting, Darin Minard, coming into game 2, something he might want to experiment with is just taking out his young Pyromancers and putting in Toil and Troubles. And that's it. Or I guess he takes out Chain to the Rocks.
Yes.
So he takes out Chain to the Rocks.
Chain to the Rocks.
And then you probably also take out the young Pyromancer, bring in the Assemble Legion. You might as well. So.
Now that is interesting though, because, I mean, the young Pyromancer represents a kind of cool level, right? Like, is Huey pulling all of his verdicts? Because if he does, then your Pyromancer looks a lot better.
That's true.
I mean, we've seen young Pyromancer can just take over a game if left unchecked. Gets kind of interesting, right? Like, do you leave him in? Do you pull him out?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty difficult.
Yeah, Toil and Trouble seems ridiculous. Though, can he cast both sides?
Yes, he can.
Okay, he's got
he
some
has,
Scrylands.
yeah, he has white-black Scrylands.
Okay.
Another thing about Darin's deck that I really like is the Scrylands. I mean, don't get me wrong, Scrylands are so good in a control deck like Esper where you're looking for specific answers and it can let you dig to find them and let you dig to hit your land drops so you're guaranteed to, you know, get to that 7th land or 8th land in the crucial turn and then draw gas from there on out. But the place where Scryland really shines, brighter than anywhere else, is a burn deck. Because when it comes down to it, the way the burn deck of, like the grand scheme of history has lost more games than any other ways, it's drawn too many lands. Because if you resolve somewhere in between 7 and 8 spells, you win the game.
Right.
Your spells on average deal 3 damage to your opponent, and once you resolve enough of them, your opponent dies.
Right.
And that can obviously be offset by your opponent playing a lot of life gain, and we see William Jensen has access to things like Sphinx's Revelation, which let him pull ahead. But
he also has Fiendslayer Paladin and Blind Obedience, which is
both
interesting.
Of which
definitely
definitely going to get brought in here. I mean, he wants to bring in anything he can to interact with the burn spells.
And Blind Obedience, you get 2 or 3 activations off of that, and you've kind of blanked one burn spell.
It's also quite good against the Phoenixes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, they have haste.
Right.
Blind Obedience, good against haste.
Fiendslayer Paladin, that thing can do a ton of work against
Yes.
Darin's deck. I mean, I don't know if he has anything that can hit it. I mean, if he's assuming that he's going to take out the Chain to the Rocks, it's pretty tough to figure out something that can hit Fiendslayer Paladin.
I guess maybe he's got to keep the Chain to Rocks in for the Fiendslayer Paladin.
This is an interesting sideboard situation we have here, because you clearly don't want Chain of the Rocks versus Huey's normal game plan. But if you assume he's bringing in the Paladins, which is a pretty safe assumption, then...
Well, he's definitely bringing in the Paladins.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So do you leave in the Chain to the Rocks?
I mean,
is it really just a swap? Like you take out your Young Pyromancer and you bring in Toil and Treble?
Could be. I mean, you want to summon the Legion against this deck.
Do you, though?
Yeah. The card's insane against this deck. They have to have, what's it called? They have to have Detention Sphere.
They do need to have Detention Sphere.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise you just win. Especially Huey's list, because it's so slow. I don't even think he has, let's take a quick look here, but I don't even think he has, Aetherlings or anything like that. No, he doesn't. His win conditions are 1 Elixir of Immortality and
1 Elspeth.
An Elspeth, and then maybe a Jace sometimes.
Yeah, Jace can win games.
Yeah, but he's looking to go as long as possible here.
This deck is so 90s.
I know. It's not a Sarah Angel, it's an Elspeth now, but otherwise everything's the same.
This deck is like you're playing against your friend in your bedroom while listening to the new Blind Melon album. That's
Wow. You went deep, buddy. Blind Melon, huh? Well, all I can say is that this is going to be very interesting to see what happens post-board here, because Fiendslayer Paladin could just run over Darin. I mean, that card can do so much work against him. He might just have to leave Chain to the Rocks in, and then it's Huey knows that. Maybe he's just nah, we don't need Fleece. We'll just leave him out.
No, he's definitely bringing in his Fiendslayer Paladin.
Yeah, the thing is that
every time it connects, it's basically worth a card.
Right, and also he has answers to Chain to the Rocks even if Darin does lead them in. So yeah, of course he's bringing him in. But I'm just saying it's interesting to explore, what these guys, what's going to be going through their heads in this particular matchup.
Darin Minard making it all the way to the top 8 of this event with his Burrows Burn strategy. Pretty excited about that. I got to do a deck tech with him just yesterday, and no, he did not seem extremely confident, and here he is. So it's pretty awesome. It'd be really exciting if he was able to top 4 of the event and qualify for the Pro Tour.
Indeed. All right, let's take a look at what players have in their openers. All right, Temple of Triumph. Darin's going to keep it on top, pass the turn back to Huey. Island Go, simple start there. There's a Toil and Trouble. So that was one that we were pretty sure was going to come in, and it did. And he's just going to pass the turn back here. So he's got something, and there's a Blind Obedience. It's just a 1-0 for Huey, but a Lightning Strike to Huey's face is going to bring him down to 17.
Ooh, that's a great one to draw there.
Chandra Pyromaster
Chandra
there.
the Pyromaster.
All right, and another untapped land, and trouble.
6.
Wow. Huge burn spell there. And that's going to drop Huey down to 11 right off the bat. Huey passes with Syncopate in hand and Blind Obedience up. There's a Skull Crack now for Darin. He's just going to say go. Draw a card and also activate my Blind Obedience. And I think Darin's just going to let that happen. Yeah, he does.
Yeah, imagine at this point he really has to. He could Skull Crack in response, but you know he's only negating 1 life there with the Skull Crack, and there are a lot better options for him.
All right, there's a Lightning Strike.
Huey had the option of syncopating for 2 there and using his Blind Obedience, but
he must be more worried about something big coming down on Darin's side, like the Chandra or something along those lines. All right, now both players have entered a pattern of just passing. This has to favor Huey, though, hitting his land drops.
Definitely.
And there's a Chandra's Phoenix.
And Syncopate's perfect answer to that.
And enters tapped.
Huey's just going to let that resolve, though.
And he's going to Last Breath it.
Makes sense. He's
So,
hunting for a target for that spell.
That's right, and away it goes.
He knows his opponent is short on land. That Syncopate is going to be live for at least some time. Huey down to just 2 non-land cards left in hand. One of them being a Syncopate, the other being a Sphinx's Revelation. He's going to go ahead and cast this Revelation for 3 now.
Okay.
This could be a big turning point, actually. I mean, Darin draws a land here, and he does.
Wow, hits a mountain off the top.
Absolutely huge.
By the way, I do see Chain of the Rocks in Darin's hand, so he did decide to keep it in, needed it. Also, I've been corrected. Apparently, Assemble Legion, not that good versus Huey's deck. People I trust on Twitter are saying that, and I'm going to default to them for this one. So.
Yeah. I wasn't sure. I mean, it was
yeah,
good
it was
the
me that
control
said
decks
it, not you.
back
Yeah,
then.
it was me. Yep. I was thinking you kind of run them out of resources by doing burn spells, and then you can clean up with that. But like I said, sometimes you got to listen to the to the pros, and they say it's not good. So, all right, Elspeth, Sun's champion for Huey is going to put him in a nice position here. Would you rather have Chandra or Elspeth?
I think I'd rather have Elspeth.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't
I mean,
seem like a super fair fight.
To be fair, here in this spot,
Yeah.
I think Chandra's probably winning the war right now.
Okay.
I mean, because Chandra just goes to 6, kills a token, shoots the Elspeth. He War Leaders Helixes the Elspeth. And then he has a Chandra on 6 against like 2 one-toughness guys. Oh, I guess Mutavault just assassinates the Chandra then.
Yeah.
And then
But still, I mean, the line that you took, taking down Elspeth Sun's champion, is, I mean, getting that thing off the table has got to be plan A here for Darin. But isn't there a point, if you're in the burn player seat, when you have to start throwing your burn at planeswalkers, and that's just bad?
yeah.
I mean, the game goes longer the more you do that, and of course Huey's quite excited to have the game go as long as possible. Huey's at 13.
Well, actually, the Chain to the Rocks actually changes the math enough that the Chandra will still be in play, even if Huey attacks it with both Mutavaults.
Now, he pointed at Huey, but he actually did the one to Huey. Can
Okay.
you? Okay.
I don't hate that at all.
All right.
I mean, Huey's
'Cause
at
he
12. He's just doing race math.
Yeah,
at this point.
he has 8 damage in his hand, Darin.
The one thing he has to be wary of is, I mean, if an Elspeth does, by some chance, get an opportunity to oof.
Okay, here we go. So this is Darin's plan here, and it is going to be foiled here by a syncopate.
Yep.
And he's going to pay for one blind obedience trigger as well.
This matchup does not seem very good for Darin after
just a huge swing.
it.
Yeah, I mean.
But, I mean, given he did stall on 3 lands for a little bit, if that Chandra was in play for a few more turns, the game would have been much, much different.
But, I mean, that was his whole plan right there, right? Is like 4U, 8U, find a couple more damage and call it a game. And now it feels like that has slipped away from him. I mean, he went from attempting to hit his opponent for 4 to instead taking, let's see, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage, over half of his life total here, and really just not having enough time or burn in his hand to do 13 to Huey. Also, any more counter spells from Huey, and this thing's just done.
And I believe that Huey does have a Dissolve in hand.
Okay.
So it's pretty much it. In Hall of Famer, William Huey Jensen, moving on to the semifinals.
This matchup seemed not very fun from Darin's side of the...
Well, okay, if Darin had drawn the land on turn 4 when he was tapped out,
we'd be in a totally different
We'd be in a
spot.
completely different ballgame
Okay.
because he would have gone to Ultimate the Chandra. And when his deck's really good when it Ultimate Chandra. Most people never ever do that.
And that's it. William Huey Jensen moves on to the semifinals, defeating Darin Minard with Boros Burn.
So Darin Minard, excellent tournament there. I mean, made it all the way to top 8, playing this really innovative deck that he and his friends worked on.
You take a look at him, though, and the reason why he looks so disappointed is twofold. One, I mean, he just lost, right? It's a huge 2-day investment, a big run, and it's always disappointing to lose. But on top of it, there's the cut, right? You made the top 8, but there's also getting an invite to the next Pro Tour. Real quick here, Grand Prix Prague, Modern. Format I love a lot. January 11th and 12th.
I have a column about Modern coming out tomorrow.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I will read said column.
Cool.
Make sure that you guys watch our European coverage team. They do excellent work, and it is not to be missed. I know I'll be watching that one.
I'll definitely be watching a Modern European event.
Yep. All right, and flashing back over here to Ben Stark, who has got his hands in his pockets and a bunch of creatures attacking, so... He's playing against another blue-white list here, although I see there's a Celestial Flare in the yard, which is something that I don't think that that Huey had access to. So we don't have life totals, but we're going to get them as soon as possible. I see that Ben's talking. That's normal.
Yes, that is normal. He talks to himself and everyone around him during all matches.
So life is as it should be here in Dallas currently.
The universe is where it belongs. Eric Centauri, this blue-white control deck, and his awesome last name, facing off against the current #1 player in the world, Ben Stark, winner of Pro Tour Paris back in 2011.
Ben has a sweet board state here with a spear and 3 creatures, though. All right, looks like we have our life totals here. It looks like Ben's up a game, and it looks he's in good position here.
I mean, his board is definitely good, and even if his opponent has some good answers, he's still going to be in a rough spot. Because
so Centauri's going to throw Mutavault as a chump block here, and then last breath, his own Mutavault. So he's going to take 4, 7, so he's going to take 3 this turn. And Ben Stark just continues to pile on. He's going to play that Dryad Militant, so, I mean, clearly Eric is dying for a, well, that's pretty good too, but it just sort of negates the spear But, you know, he really wants a Supreme Verdict and clearly doesn't have one. So,
I mean, the thing is, even if he plays the Supreme Verdict next turn, Ben is coming at him for 12 damage with Mutavault and Zombies.
yeah, unbelievable. All right, everybody in. Eric asks, who is attacking what?
Yeah, so
those blank
11,
out. So
and
2,
that's
4,
lethal.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yes, Ben Stark advances to the semifinals here. So the Hall of Famers doing the up-and-comers no favors in the semis. Like, maybe next time,
They've made it to the Hall of
man.
Fame for a reason.
That's right, and they are going to be at the Pro Tour, while these other players, unfortunately, are going to have to wait for another opportunity to make their way onto the Pro Tour.
Yeah, but top 8 a Grand Prix, that's an excellent start to, it lights a fire.
It does, and it's a great finish. I mean, really, both of these two players that we saw in the feature match playing against our Hall of Famers here.
Yeah,
great
actually
work.
finishing in the top 1% of a tournament is pretty absurd.
Yeah, it's really, it takes a special run. It takes the right deck. It takes as few mistakes as possible. I mean, mistakes happen, we know that, but really, really good run for both of those players. So congratulations to both of them. But they will not be moving on to the semis. No, that will be Ben Stark moving on, as well as Huey. So we're starting to get a bit of a feel for what our semifinal matches are going to look like. Now, Ben and Huey are actually on opposite sides of the bracket.
Yeah, so if they fight, it's going to be in the finals. Oh, please.
It's entirely
I can taste
possible.
it.
Yeah, you guys take a look here at our brackets, and so Ben in the semis, he's going to be playing the winner of Seth Manfield or Marlon Guteirrez. Either way, he's going to be playing against a control deck. Significantly different builds, though, of course. One of them is blue-white, which is what he just beat. The other one is Orzhov Control, a completely different take.
I mean, Ben probably doesn't want to play against the 4 Blood Baron of Viscopa deck. I'm just throwing that out
You're
there.
just going to throw that one out there. Yeah, you have to figure that when they built the deck, the Orzhov aggro deck, that they had blue-white or at least blue-white-black, the Esper control list in mind as something that they needed to have answers to, needed to be able to beat.
Yeah, and if they're thinking about a black control deck, they're thinking about mono-black Devotion, and that they're trying to beat Gray Merchants and things of that sort. They're not trying to beat Blood Barons.
Right.
So
that's where we have a potential matchup down there. On the other side, Huey gets by Darin Minard, and he is going to be playing against either Haibing Hu, the only mono-black Devotion player to make it into the top 8. No mono-blue Devotion this week. Not coincidentally, Sam Black couldn't make it to this event. Carlos Becerra-Reyes on red Devotion, which is a deck at least since I've been here, which has only been today, I haven't seen it on the camera. So
yeah, we haven't seen this on camera at all this weekend.
Curious to see that one.
It's a deck that's kind of fallen off the radar. The Channel Fireball guys played Red Devotion at Pro Tour Theros. Did not do well at all. Kind of got smashed. Since then, the deck's had some scattered success. There was a fairly large tournament in Florida maybe 3 weeks ago that Ben Stark actually won. Playing a Red Devotion deck, splashing green for Domri Raid.
Okay.
And I think the deck list that Ben Stark won that tournament with is what Carlos is playing.
Okay.
So it's funny because he's playing Ben Stark's deck, and they're both in the top 8 of the Grand Prix.
Nice. So does Ben get 2 top 8s? No, I guess not.
Something else that's kind of cool that's going on here. Ben and William Jensen, they're both Hall of Famers, but they're not just Hall of Famers. They're both part of the most recent class.
They
Hall
are.
of Fame. They just 2 months ago, we were both in Ireland watching them getting called onto a stage and having all these great people talk about them.
Yeah, it was a special moment. All right, it looks like we're ready to go back in the feature match area here. Is this our third quarterfinal match? All right, so we've got Seth Manfield versus Marlon Guteirrez. So great, we get to watch a little more quarterfinal action. It looks like Seth's up 1 game. These do tend to go long.
Yeah, I mean, it is a control mirror, so they might get into these draw-go type of situations. Seth Manfield, very patient. He's going to know what he has to do in these types of matchups. Marlon Guteirrez, pretty impressive run here with a rogue deck, Orzhov Control. It might be hard for him to get through a lot of counter magic.
Now, he does have access to... It is. He's got Thought Seizes and I believe even Duresses.
I think he actually has 2 main deck Duress.
I think he has 6 removal spells, hand disruption spells in his deck, I believe.
Well, 7 main deck because he's a Sin Collector as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So he could be set up for it. I mean, this
Yeah, that's confirmed.
This is going to be a fun match.
4 Thoughtseize, 2 Duress, and a Sin Collector in the main, so he is no stranger to this particular fight. Seth has won the first game, though, so Marlon is going to need to come up with back-to-back wins here in order to ensure his semifinal seat. And I believe we're going to see the first, yeah, here it is, a Thoughtseize. Now, these get pretty interesting because what you'll often see with these control mirrors is that they'll save their Thoughtseizes for the long game. You know, they'll try to set it up so that they can make their opponent burn some counter spells or just have them taken out of their hand so they can resolve some huge threat. He's going to fire one off pretty early here, though.
The other thing is that you can bait counter spells with Thoughtseize pretty well, and then you don't even have to pay the 2 life for it.
Right.
And you get your opponent to tap out.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely
so
one of the nicer things you can do with that card.
There's, I believe, a Last Breath at Jace's Sphinx's Revelation. Is that a Last Breath? That can't be a Last Breath. What is that?
I think it's a Last Breath.
I mean, he doesn't have any real targets for that unless, I guess, Mutavault. It is an issue. All right, well, we'll find out in a second, but he's also got a Jace in there. Took his Dissolve. Does that signal that Marlon's trying to resolve something good next turn? Like, is he going for a Connections or something?
I mean, I think Dissolve is just like one of the best cards against this black-white control deck because the black-white control deck needs to be resolving big spells.
Mm-hmm.
And
here comes a big spell. Desecration
that's a
Demon.
big spell.
Mm-hmm. So that's going to put big pressure on Seth Manfield here. Now, you'd think that Seth would have quite a few answers to a Desecration Demon in his deck. He doesn't have any in his hand. He has a Jace Architect of Thought, so he's going to use this as sort of a divination type effect.
Yeah, he's going to go hunting for a Supreme Verdict. Doesn't find one. He's going to get 2 lands, though. Not the worst.
Marlon almost put those into 2 piles really quickly, but now he's surveying the scene and making sure that he does this right.
Seth, pretty happy to take the pile of 2 cards there. Marlon, I guess, had some interesting options there. He could, give him the blue land and the 2 non-blue lands, or he give him the 2 lands that come into play tapped and the 1 land that comes into play untapped.
He's got to be happy, though, just to see 3 lands come off the top. There's no answer for his demon.
Definitely.
Now, he's kind of forced to just attack Jace here, though, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So, kill Jace. And only a 1-drop. It's another Thoughtseize, though. So he's just looking to protect his Desecration Demon, I suppose, but there's really only 1 unknown card there. So it's a Revelation, a ton of lands. And is that actually a Last Breath down there?
It is a Last Breath.
Okay. So
not very good here.
yeah, it's actually just not great against Marlon. But again, Marlon does have the Mutavaults, and that might just be his way to get rid of him.
He also has Pack Rat, and I mean, if he backs a Pack Rat up with the insane amount of discard that he has, then Seth really needs more cards that can just kill a Pack Rat by itself.
I see. Yeah, I also want to note here that we are in Game 2, where Marlon has access to 2 more Sin Collectors and another Duress. Wow. That brings him up to 10 hand disruption spells.
It's pretty good.
Out of a 60-card deck, that's insane. So
Very
he's going to be able to
Seth's
keep,
deck.
yeah, he's going to be able to keep Seth off balance. As you can see, he took the Sphinx's Revelation, and he plays a Pack Rat. Unfortunately, he doesn't have quite enough mana to make a token this turn. He's just hoping that Seth doesn't draw a Supreme Verdict, and he didn't.
It looks like Seth drew another copy of Jace, Architect of Thought. So he's probably just going to play that and use the Mini Factor Fiction ability once again.
Searching for that Supreme Verdict.
I think that is his best course of action here.
Now, is he going to scry first? Yeah, he is. Scry, take a peek. We didn't get a chance to see it. He knows what it is. We're going to know if he wants it. Yeah, so we actually are going to get a chance to see it here. He puts it back on top. And he's going to Last Breath the Pack Rat right away. So just as you said.
I'm actually a little bit surprised that Marlon even played that Pack Rat. He knows his opponent has that Last Breath. And I mean, the Last Breath's pretty dead if you don't play that Pack Rat there, right?
Yeah, well, and that's what I was saying. It was unfortunate that he doesn't have a way to make a copy of the thing. You know, because you can just make a copy and then Last Breath doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, he had the 5 lands that he needed to make the...
But he decided to Thoughtseize instead. So... Loses the pack rat there instead, and he does still have Desecration Demon, though, applying big-time pressure to Seth Manfield's life total. And he goes for the Underworld connections. That's a huge hit there, and Marlon passes the turn back. So now Seth has multiple problems to deal with. Was that a Celestial Flare that he just drew?
I believe it was, yes.
That would be quite nice here.
It's definitely a nice one.
Yeah, take down that Desecration Demon and get the life total safe, and then he can move over to trying to find an answer for the Underworld connections. But he's just going to kick off with Jason. I believe just hope to hit a land here. All right, well, there's a win condition, a Celestial Flare. Wow, a lot of action here. No lands. He has lands in hand, though. Wow, so Marlon, he's got a bit of a decision here.
Yeah, he has a pretty big decision here. It's
I mean, the Detention Sphere is one of the great answers for Underworld connections. And he's actually going to just put the sphere by itself, it looks like. He wants to protect that connections. He knows that if this game goes long, he's sitting at 20 life. That's just 20 cards, you know?
20 cards.
Well,
I like thinking about it like that.
19 cards. maybe don't draw that last one, but yeah.
Well, he has a Blood Baron in his hand, too.
He does.
Connects once, 23 cards.
I like the way you do math, Jacob. So, yeah, and he's just going to protect it. Aetherling, though, could definitely become an issue later. And, of course, the Celestial Flare is good in the immediate sense in that it can take out Desecration Demon. Though, knowledge of said Celestial Flare makes it a lot worse. All right, draw a card.
It's still fine. I mean, if your Jace doesn't die, then...
Yeah. I'm just saying that, like, Marlon can just wait till he hits a hand disruption spell and try to take it away. You know, he's just not going to throw away his demon.
Yeah, it would be crazy to do so.
Draw another card. So he's already got 2 back from the Underworld connections. Is this a duress? No, it's another Thoughtseize. And he has 2 Celestial Flares, the Aetherling.
Yeah, I don't think Marlon was expecting double Celestial Flare.
No, he's like, hey, you almost got me, buddy. So now he just has to take the Aetherling, and now he's just like perfectly set up to go super long here and grind out his opponent with that Underworld connections. Downside, of course, is Jace. Jace is going to let Seth potentially dig, though he's got an interesting decision. Next turn, you know, he can just get a little panicky and just go for it, or he can just plus it and say, yeah, we'll be here for a while.
I think it really depends on what he draws first turn.
Sure.
This is complicated. All right, so he's going to go ahead and take the Aetherling. Can't fault him for that. I mean, his deck is not happy to deal with an Aetherling, especially considering he has the Blood Baron in hand, and Aetherling is a pretty nice trump to that card.
Right.
He does, however, leave his opponent with 2 Celestial Flares, and Celestial Flare...
He's going to attack. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
get
Seth
one out of his hand, I guess.
Pretty happy about that. I mean, it's an interesting attack from Marlon because you're just letting your opponent use his mana more efficiently.
So this explains it now. He's got the Pack Rat and the Underworld connection, so he just wants to try to get those Celestial Flares out of his hand, I suppose. Did you get a chance to see what Seth drew there?
I believe he drew an Azorius Term.
Okay.
So here he can either minus the Jace, or I kind of like plussing the Jace and then using your Azorius Charm on the Pack Rat when it attacks next turn.
Well, I mean,
or your
but Marlon knows, like, he could actually just get him. He's going to use it now.
Okay.
If Marlon were to attack with both Pack Rats, he could Celestial Flare. No, then he just sacks the correct one anyway. So.
Well, he only has 1 Pack Rat. He can attack with 2 next turn.
Yeah, right. Good point. Yeah. Yep. So, plus or minus? Plus Jace. Ooh, and he found a detention sphere. And he's going to take out Underworld Connections, leave the Pack Rat. Okay, so a big turn there for Seth Manfield. Though he is still going to be facing an army of rats here. He's left up double white. Making an attack with this rat, not a great idea.
Yeah, this rat, there are a lot of things that just gobble it up, including the Celestial Flare that he knows
He just
is
knows.
in Seth's hand.
Plus, it only attacks for one, even if he makes a rat. So
Yeah.
this rat's going to be hanging back. And Seth has bought himself a little bit of breathing room here to try to find another detention sphere or Supreme Verdict to make sure that these rats are gone. And if he can do that, he'll have stabilized quite nicely.
It's a pretty complicated game, though.
And you can tell that the wow. All right, he's going to play a Blood Baron of Viscopa here. Man, this is where you draw a verdict, right? I think he did.
Ooh, did he really?
I think he did. Well, he's going to have one either way, but I think he actually drew one. We'll find out shortly.
Yeah,
If he takes the dissolve pile, we know he drew one.
I think you just take the verdict, right? Oh,
He takes the dissolve pile. Oh, yeah, so he did top deck a verdict there, but he's got another one as backup. Wow, so he's actually going to end this turn with an active Jason play. His opponent has not drawn a Mutavault yet. And that's a big bummer for Marlon Guteirrez. He was in a pretty good position 2 turns ago, and now he's just way behind.
And I mean, even the Blood Baron that's in his hands, not great against Seth Manfield's Dissolve.
All right, well, there's a duress. We talked about it before. He's going to bait out the counter spell. He's going to earn that. He's going to let his opponent scry one here, but this is going to give him a window to play the other Blood Baron. So he's back in business. He's got a Blood Baron of Viscopa, and his opponent needs to find some action. Did he just draw another verdict?
I believe he did, yes.
Well,
Just
then.
on time.
That is one way to do it. Supreme Verdict. And Marlon's got to try to... That's brutal. Back-to-back verdicts. So many verdicts he can just pass. Just like, no, I don't need that one. I'll take a dissolve. Is that a pack rat? Geez, now a pack rat, though, for Marlon Guteirrez. So the pressure is still on. Even though Seth has managed to get himself out of some pretty bad situations this game through some verdicts and a detention sphere, Marlon has kept the heat on. This pack rat is absolutely
Yeah, pack rat does
threatening.
what it does when it goes unchecked, you know? It can
Right.
take a game over. And Seth, I mean, he has things like Detention Sphere and Supreme Verdict that match up very well against that card. And usually net, 2 or 3 for 1. But at the same time, the card does close games very quickly, and Marlon is able to protect it with enough discard and just hand disruption in general. And
So worst case scenario here for Marlon is that Seth has like Sphinx's Revelation or something and just completely blows this game out of the water.
yeah.
Looks like Seth is considering popping Jace here. Nope. Going to plus Jace.
I like that.
Play a land. And is Marlon going to be making a rat?
One would have to assume that.
Right. Marlon's definitely considering it here. It looks like he's going to go for it. Yeah, he's going to discard a duress. It's pretty nice. So he's got a couple of rats. So crude, though. He's stuck drawing just one card per turn. It just seems unfair. Finds a Mutavault, though.
Plays it.
Plays a Mutavault. So he's not going to make a rat here. And here's a Celestial Flare. Now, Marlon knew that Celestial Flare was in his hand. So he's going to lose one of these. And he's going to attack. He had attacked Jace, activate Mutavault, and Jace only takes one. Wow. So this is playing the Mutavault there means that if Seth can find a way to kill a pack rat, and he's digging for one right now, he can get rid of pack rat for good, but he doesn't. He finds Azorius Charm.
It seems like Seth's got this one now. He's really grinded this one out. The pack rat can still win the game, but Marlon's only going to be making one extra each turn.
A draw off of Azorius Charm.
Was that a Pithing Needle? That would be a pretty good one.
I didn't see. We're in the quarterfinals here in Dallas. Seth Manfield up a game versus Marlon Guteirrez. They are both playing control decks, though. Yeah, it was a Pithy Needle, but different color pairs. And he's going to name Mutavault and let him keep his pack rat. What does that mean, Jake?
That means that he likely is leaning on something like Supreme Verdict or some other sort of permanent removal. The pack rats are going to increase in power exponentially, but the cards that he's looking for to deal with pack rat are Detention Sphere and or Supreme Verdict, and Pithing Needle is really his best long-term answer to Mutavault, so he doesn't want to just name pack rat and then end up taking a whole bunch of damage.
But he's at 12. I mean, that pack rat's going to kill him pretty quickly, so he's put a ton of pressure on his draw step here, right?
Also, he actually drew a Mutavault of his own afterwards,
so kind of awkward there.
Definitely.
Marlon Guteirrez attacks with both pack rats. He also has one card in his hand. So this could be
8 damage with that Mutavault.
Interesting. Marlon actually just lets him, and he's going to play a Desecration Demon. That's bigger than a pack rat. He has lethal on the table. And it doesn't look like Marlon actually used his Mutavault on that last turn, because he only took 4 there. Could have taken 6 if he activated
the needle.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
It's late.
I always
We've been
forget.
playing.
Yeah.
Or commentating, rather.
Yep, not smart. Pack rat. Now, I think he's actually playing that Underworld Connections. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense because he can just get the card right back. He's at 16. He's not under any threat at all. So he can get the card back anyway and then set himself up for more cards in the future. Draws a card off it right away. Wants to go to attacks. Now, Pithy Needle, does that only affect your opponent's?
No, it affects everything.
Because did Seth just activate his Mutavault and sack it to the demon there, or?
Ooh, and Needle is named Mutavault?
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Right. So even a dumb guy can figure that out.
Yeah.
That's me. So I'm pretty sure I saw that that's exactly what happened. Yeah. Okay, So they're going to rewind. Well, there's the ultra rare Game 2 handshake.
The Game 2 handshake.
Let's go to Game 3 handshake, I believe. Okay, so Marlon Guteirrez did win that game because Seth is not able to activate his Mutavault thanks to his own Pithy Needle. And it looks like we're going to force a Game 3 here. So Control fans at home, rejoice.
Rejoice.
Aggro fans, sandwich time.
Yeah. Get ready. You got to settle in for this Control mirror. We have a Game 3 about to happen. You guys want nachos? Go get, make yourself some nachos. Don't turn off the stream while you go, though. Grilled cheese. You ask your mom to make grilled cheese for you. Maybe some tomato soup. It's cold outside. Hit the spot. Yeah, so,
So coverage saves the day.
What is? Oh, yeah, because you saw the mid-vault thing.
It's a thing.
Yeah, we've saved the day a couple times this weekend.
Yeah, you guys are doing
I
a
caught
good job
somebody
saving the day yesterday.
playing extra land yesterday. It was
I
a
saw that.
mistake, but
I saw that.
it obviously was not intentional. The turn was pretty long, and like it was just like it was something that I couldn't believe that nobody noticed because he was stuck on 3 lands forever, and then the end of that turn he had 5, and it was like, oh, what? Your hand was all 4 drops. How did that happen?
Right. Let's take a look at the sideboards here. 4 Gainsay, nope, those aren't coming in. Pithy Needle, he's already brought in, probably will leave it. He's got 4 Soldier of the Pantheon. No, that's not really going to get
really
it
want
done.
those.
Celestial Flare he's shown, and those seem pretty good.
Those do seem pretty good.
Although, I got to say that if Marlon knows about those, he can play around them pretty nicely, right? I mean, he's got Mutavaults.
And he has a million discard spells, so if he like sees them in his opponent's hand, he can just be like, all right, well, I guess I won't attack now.
Right. Although he didn't take that line in the game. He decided, like, remember we saw him trade off his demon
he just charged
for
into
unknown.
it.
He was just like, yeah, whatever, get it out of your hand. It was a 4-mana duress.
Yeah, no way. That was also particularly interesting because he knew his opponent had it in his hand, and his opponent had no other cards that he could cast for that mana cost, and had exactly that mana up.
Mm-hmm.
So he just like let him use his mana efficiently.
Right. 1 negate, that's going to come in for sure. 1 Archangel of Thune.
No, you don't want that here.
Okay, and what about Fiendslayer Paladin? Most of the removal he's facing is black.
Yeah, but I mean, Fiendslayer Paladin gets trumped by a lot of the cards here.
Yeah, it's just a 2/2 ultimately.
Yeah, like Pack Rat trumps Fiendslayer Paladin.
Right.
Blood Baron of Scopa trumps Fiendslayer Paladin. Fiendslayer Paladin is just something that gets Lifebane zombied if Marlon has that in his deck for some reason.
Right. So,
which he won't, but
yeah. So it looks like Seth actually doesn't have a ton of options out of the board here. 2 Celestial Flare, a Pithy Needle, and a negate seem to be the only.
That's fine.
Ones.
You know, it's still a decent amount. He's playing control deck, so all of his cards are naturally powerful.
Yeah, it's just none of these are really silver bullets against Marlon, right? I mean, it's not like,
oh yeah, I mean,
I have the Celestial Flare, so game over, right? It's like, no, it's just a 1-for-1.
And Marlon doesn't have anything like that against Seth either.
Yeah, let's take a look over there. He's got his own Pithy Needle, so he can name Jace with that pretty cleanly as he's not running it himself. But he does. He's got 2 Sin Collectors and a Duress, which are great, right, against Seth. I mean, those are excellent.
They're good.
Just good?
I mean, I think discard spells are really good, but I don't think they're, I don't
you
think he's going to look
excellent?
at his opening hand and he's going to see, like, it's very reasonable for him to look at his opening hand and see, like, 3 discard spells.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think you can necessarily translate that into, oh, yes, I have 3 discard spells. I'm definitely winning this game.
Okay.
Because you can't play around the top of your opponent's library.
Sure.
So
I feel like with 3, I think you just work him. I mean, you figure out what you want to resolve. You get to keep it
you
forever.
need a threat to go with it.
Yeah, but I mean, any threat, right? Like a Pack Rat's a threat.
Pack Rat's a threat.
Even something like an Underworld Connections can take over the game pretty quickly.
Yeah, Underworld Connections is a really good one.
Yeah. So.
You need something to go with them.
You do.
That's basically what I'm saying. And they're good. They're very good. They're fine standalone cards too, but if you want them to win the game for you, you need a threat alongside the disruption.
True. Another interesting way to look at it too is that Seth's deck, when you really look at these decks, they're pretty light on win conditions. And if you can nab a couple of, he's got an Aetherling and 2 Elspeths. I don't think he has any other, so he's got a pair of Mutavaults and then the 4 Jaces. I mean, if you get a Pithy Needle naming Jace and you can take away, let's say 2 of his 3 win conditions, like you can be in a pretty nice spot to have as much time as you need to kind of grind him out, right?
Yeah.
It does get interesting when you're talking about decks that have this is not a redundancy deck, right? Like some of these cards are vastly more powerful than the others. And if Marlon can hit those, it can buy him a ton of time. I think the card that I'm most interested in for Marlon, though, is Underworld Connections. I feel like that's going to give him access to something that Seth Manfield will probably not have access to. Sure, he has Sphinx's Revelation. He can get a bunch of cards at once, but Marlon can take that from him.
Yeah. Marlon can pluck the Singster Relation out of his hand. Seth's going to need to top deck one when he has a lot of land. Even if he does resolve a big one in response to a discard spell, Marlon, still going to get to take the best one of the lot.
Mm-hmm.
And Underworld Connections really is the most important card here.
Okay. This is going to be interesting.
All right.
All right.
So let's
so
see.
Control fight. Though sometimes these do just come down to, and this is what I like about Marlon's side, is they do sometimes come down to like turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Pack Rat, and he just can't find the answer, and that ends it.
Yeah.
That happens sometimes with these Thoughtseize type decks. So where Seth doesn't have that kind of draw, he just there's no draw where he can just like play something and just win right away. The game must go long for him to have success. All right, it looks like Seth has kept his 7. Marlon, who's on the draw here, assuming. He might not be, but he probably is mulliganing to 6.
Yeah, going down to 6 cards on the draw here. Not that big of a deal.
No.
It would be a much bigger deal if Seth had to mulligan, because mulliganing on the play against the deck with as much discard as Marlon's,
Oh, yeah.
that would be pretty disastrous. I imagine you'd be, you're really leaning super hard on the top of your deck at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And the game hasn't even started yet.
Right. All right, getting the old super shuffle here for Marlon. It is important to randomize your deck fully.
Oh, look, somebody who was following us on Twitter was actually eating grilled cheese and tomato soup as I was talking about it.
Oh.
It's a good meal for today.
Yeah.
Mid-December, we're in the frozen land of Dallas.
Yeah.
Marshall is attempting to fly out of here early tomorrow morning. Not sure if that'll work out, but better than my situation, I guess.
I'm flying out at 2:30.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
We're going to the airport together, remember?
Yep. Sorry.
I won't leave you behind, don't worry.
Thanks, man.
I'm not going to do another 3-hour cab ride by myself. All right, let's see if Marlon can keep his 6. He did.
I see a Sin Collector in there. That's a good one.
That's a good one. Sin Collector, good at applying pressure to Planeswalkers alongside taking spells out of their hand.
It's a 2-for-1,
It is. That card's very good. Just going to run the Pack Rat out there like a boss, and it resolves. Is it going to get... This is an interesting one because you see people do this because if he doesn't have an answer, things get out of hand so quickly.
Yeah, I mean...
Wow, he even draws an Underworld Connections for the turn. Does he have a land? Land is going to be a big one here. No. So he's going to run it into Azorius Charm or Celestial Flare. I don't know what Seth has. He didn't do anything, though.
Yeah, so Seth knows that his opponent can just play a 3rd land and then go for something like Underworld Connections or Sin Collector. So if he does have a counter spell in his hand, then it's really hard to use a spell on the Pack Rat there, as strange as it sounds.
And here it is, Sin Collector, to try to clear the way, but that's going to get dissolved. Yeah. So this is interesting stuff here. Seth Manfield is in an awkward spot. It is definitely,
Well, that was very well played on Seth's part.
And Marlon as well, not playing the land first.
Yeah.
And just being like, sure, attack you. He played it right into a bunch of different removal spells, but Seth sniffed it out and said, no, I don't think that's the way this is going to go. Now,
Marlon played the bait game well.
He did. And then he got what he wanted. He got a counterspell out of his hand with the Sin Collector. Now, Seth again passes a turn back, but now Marlon is in a much different position because now he can actually just start making Pack Rat tokens. The thing is, man, he wants to get a look at what Seth Manfield is working with here in a big way.
Definitely.
Again, he's going to offer the Pack Rat. And again, the Pack Rat is going to enter the red zone, and the reason is because he wants to resolve the Underworld Connections in his hand.
Yeah, it's really far and away the most important card that he has in his hand.
But just can't really go for it here, right? Oh, he finds a Lifebane zombie, though.
Ooh, and that one came in. Interesting.
That is interesting. And he does, in fact, get to see the hand.
Ooh.
Wow.
He's got
This
nothing.
is not a great hand currently for Seth Manfield. And Marlon Guteirrez is going to let him have a draw step, and he is going to slam. Well, this is interesting. He can actually move in on Pack Rat if he wants here, too. Though 2 lands away from Elspeth coming down and really kind of making Pack Rat a lot more marginal. So, you got to figure that Marlon's just going to go for the underworld connections. Pass a turn. What did he draw? Couldn't quite see. Maybe a Hero's Downfall.
Yeah, I couldn't see either. Hero's Downfall would be pretty awesome. Gets that Elspeth.
Land untapped. This is going to be a tight one here. Put your seatbelts on, because this Seth Manfield does not have any wiggle room here. Underworld connections. Resolves. Draw card. So Marlon now has a solid board state and underworld connections going. We saw this in game 1 where Seth was able to get himself out of it, but then ultimately lose anyway. And he drew a duress and he plays it. So is Seth forced to just fire off that Sphinx's Revelation right here?
He may be. I mean,
he gets to gain 2 life and increase the number of cards in his hand.
Yeah, and I mean, he's going to have an Elspeth for next turn no matter what he does. So he's probably just going to use the Revelation.
This is going to get ugly, though, for Seth if it continues the way it is. So he does not play Sphinx's Revelation, and he's going to let Marlon have a look here. So Elspeth, Sphinx's Revelation, Plains Island. Marlon, I mean, he could take an Elspeth, but it feels like just taking Sphinx's Revelation makes more sense, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, it's the big spell.
It's the big spell. Take it. Gone.
Yeah.
And now Seth gets to do nothing except for take 4 damage. So 14 for Seth Manfield, pass a turn, draw step. It is a scry land, so we're just going to see Elspeth here instead. And she's going to put up some defense. Now, the Lifebane zombie has Intimidate, so these tokens aren't going to matter to it. Pack Rat, they do matter to. But I believe that Marlon has the removal spell in his hand for Elspeth potentially.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he does have a Hero's Downfall in hand.
Which is nice, except for that there's also another Elspeth Suns champion coming down.
Yeah, the very next turn.
In the very next turn. So, if he could manage it, I'm sure he'd love to send that Lifebane zombie at Elspeth and kind of do it that way. But I just think that the board state for Seth is going to get so out of control by the time that actually comes to fruition. It's just not really going to be realistic. Now, he does have enough mana here, though, to fire off a Hero's Downfall and also make a Pack Rat. Though, if he has another land drop, he can also use his Underworld connections in conjunction with all of that stuff. So, all right, land drop.
So pretty interesting here. The turn 2 Pack Rat has never had an opportunity to make a friend.
No, but he's been making relevant plays besides the Pack Rat.
Yeah, I think he's been playing really well.
Both of these players are already in the top 8. We're in the quarterfinals. And this is a huge, huge match. They're both trying to make it to the semis, trying to stay alive. I don't know if Marlon is qualified for the next Pro Tour, but if I assume that he isn't, this is a huge match for him. Seth Manfield should be qualified already.
Yes.
After his GP success this season.
Yeah, Seth Manfield will be in Valencia.
Yeah, so less pressure on Seth as far as that goes, but just as much as far as actually attempting to win this thing goes.
winning a tournament's a big deal.
Yes.
Like it.
You can ask Owen Turtenwald about that. I mean, sometimes it takes a while. All right. And he's going to discard Desecration Demon to make a Pack Rat. And he's going to activate his Mutavault to make the Pack Rat bigger. And he just traded his Pack Rat for 3 tokens, but left himself a Pack Rat behind. Okay. Now, Seth Manfield still has Elspeth Sun's Champion, though, on the table.
It's a good one.
Lifebane Zombie hit Seth to bring him down to 11.
All right. Elspeth going to continue to go upstairs. Such a powerful effect going on.
And Seth has to just pass a turn back. So can Marlon keep the pressure on? He's got Underworld Connections going, and he has for a few turns now. Keeps it going. I feel like he wants to try to hit a discard spell here to try to take the other Elspeth away and then kill this one with a Hero's Downfall or something.
Yeah, I mean, that would be good. The other thing is that he's actually just winning the race with this Lifebane Zombie right now. And he could continue getting pretty aggressive with this Rat and the Lifebane Zombie, and I could see it working out pretty well for him.
Yeah, on this turn he can do the same thing he did last turn, basically. He can make a Rat, trade it off for some soldiers potentially, and get in there with Lifebane Zombie. Does he have it? No, he's going to make a Mutavault, and it looks like he might just be attacking with it. Yeah, he is. This is maybe a nod to Celestial Flare here as well.
That's fair.
And I don't know what he's attacking. I would assume all at Seth. That's what he's been doing.
Seems to make sense.
All right, all 3 of them go on the Rat. Marlon's probably going to make a Rat in response here.
Yeah, he's definitely just going to make a Rat.
Yep. This is,
then he trades that Rat.
Eerily similar to last turn. And Seth's like, yep. And Seth is going to take 6 here. Take 5. $7. All right, put him down to 4. And Marlon Guteirrez is nearing the point of victory here, potentially.
It's looking like this Lifebane Zombie might just go all the way.
It might. Seth has had an Elspeth on the table for 3 turns now in a row, but he's basically just been trading his activations with Pack Rats.
Yeah, and it's
and meanwhile, Lifebane
Zombie's
Zombie's been kind of chewing away at Seth Manfield's life total here. Does he have a Sphinx's Revelation? Does he have some way to shore up this board? He already activated Elspeth, so we know he doesn't have a Wrath effect here, and pass a turn back. Marlon's at 15, plenty of cushion there, and he's really been riding this Underworld Connections. It's been giving him basically free Pack Rat activations, just spending the mana.
Underworld Connections is such a powerful card, especially in these types of matchups.
Right.
If you're playing against something that's more aggressive, it obviously becomes a much worse card, but the slower your opponent's deck is, the more powerful Phyrexian Arena type effects are.
Right. Duress. All right, so we're going to get to see it right here. This is going to show it all. And it is Essence, Scatter, Elspeth, and nothing else. Just an island. So Marlon is in excellent shape now. The Essence Scatter doesn't do much here anyway because he can just make Pack Rats, and that doesn't care about counter spells. He can take Elspeth, kill the other Elspeth. He's got a lot of options here. Don't think he's winning this turn either way, so maybe it's better just to attack with Lifebane Zombie, or if you're going to kill Elspeth anyway.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, Elspeth's going to ultimate, right? You kind of need to...
Does it matter?
Maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, most Planeswalker ultimates always matter, but this one less so, I mean, potentially. All right, here's Hero's Downfall. Elspeth down. So now Seth Manfield is left with 2 irrelevant cards in hand and 3 1/1 soldiers. In comes the Lifebane Zombie. So it's going to come down to 1 draw step here from Seth. If he hits something sweet on this draw step, he can get himself out of it. But if he doesn't, it is going to go to Marlon Guteirrez, and it does. Marlon Guteirrez, with his black-white control list that he built himself, advances to the semis and earns himself an invite to the next
Pretty
Pro
impressive.
Tour.
And that was a good match.
That was a sweet match.
Jeez.
Wow. Great stuff.
Yeah. Now, in the end there, we just saw Underworld Connections' longevity, the
Yes.
power that offers up. He was able to just lean in super hard on his opponent there.
Yeah, let's take a look